Don't look now. But Nebraska, under Matt Rhule, is one win away from being bowl eligible. Took care of business yesterday against Purdue. Final score, Nebraska 31, Purdue 14. Vibes are immaculate. Vibes are immaculate, and you feel like you're getting early return on investment in the Matt Rhule era. You feel like the brand of football he's playing is reflecting what you thought you were signing up for. Yeah, it started a little bit shaky. Sure, it always does with a first-year head coach more often than not. At some point in time in year one, you kind of take your lumps. But right now, some things to be excited about in Lincoln. So we're going to talk about it right here on the Sunday Sprint. Nebraska faithful, hey, bring it in. Bring it in just for a digital embrace, if you will. We've had a lot of y'all join the party over the course of us having this show. Heck, when we did this show in a makeshift lobby in Waco, Texas, we had a lot of y'all even then dialed into this show, the hard count. So one, we appreciate y'all being dialed in and making this show what it is. Second, if you have not yet subscribed, love to have y'all a part of this, okay? So hit that subscribe button for me. We'll keep a good thing going. Also, follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at JD Piquel. I know y'all. Y'all are absolutely psycho in the best way about your football team, about your Cornhuskers. If you want to keep this conversation going, those platforms, the best way for us to interact and to hear from y'all and to incorporate what y'all want then into this show. So we appreciate y'all tremendously for that. Like I said, 5-3. One win away from bowl eligibility. Matt Rhule, not only is he coaching great football, he's out here cutting just sick promos, saying if we die, we die, sending just goosebumps up your spine during your workday when you're watching him in the office on YouTube. You're like, this dude, I'll follow this dude freaking anywhere. I don't care where we go. Like the Big Ten West, we'll see. I'll leave it at that. We will see about the Big Ten West. But you're in the fight, and that's exciting. The vibes right now in Lincoln are elite. It's one of Matt Rhule's favorite words, elite. And they should be by nature of what you've done to this point in the season, by nature of that game yesterday. It felt like a very much so Matt Rhule-esque kind of game yesterday. Not in every sense of the word, but by nature of the sense of urgency, the physicality. Like we'll talk about it right now. To backtrack a little bit, the offense is still very much so a work in progress. Like I said, it was a Matt Rhule kind of game. Matt Rhule, I promise you, will not appreciate the rate at which they turned it over yesterday as a team. 4 lost fumbles as a team, but there is very clearly an identity from this offense. Ran the ball 48 times. 48 carries. It's clear, hey, we want to get north and south. We had him on this show in the offseason, and he's like, listen, I think that the fan base in Lincoln reflects the kind of style that I want to play offensively and defensively, quite frankly. But like physicality is a word that probably comes to mind when you talk about Nebraska. When you run the ball the way they ran the ball, when you are as consistent and as dedicated to pounding the rock as they were yesterday, one, you start to have success. You start to sort of settle into your identity, as I think Nebraska is doing that right now. Then also some shots open up downfield. Only a matter of time before the secondary gets tired of triggering on the run to where they get a little bit lazy in their reads, get a little bit anxious to go and tackle that running back. Big plays open up downfield. Heinrich Haarberg, was it pretty? No. No, it wasn't pretty, but threw a 73-yard bomb to Jalen Lloyd. I say it wasn't pretty when it comes to the stat sheet, but that kind of pass and that kind of play obviously is very, very pretty. 3.3 yards a carry. If they play clean as an offense, and they operate at that yards per carry, and they have that commitment, and they can play good defense like they did yesterday, they're going to give themselves a chance in nearly every single game, in my opinion. Now, they can't have the turnovers they had yesterday. That's pretty obvious, but they're going to give themselves a chance if they get that push and have that commitment and play clean. That's the key word. Low margin for error. Low margin for error. Now, defensively, man, that was really, the defense jumps off the tape to me when I watch Nebraska. Like they play relentless style of ball. Fly around, hit you in the mouth. They're not checking their feet. They are swinging and swinging hard. They are making no apologies for how aggressive they like to play. So they allowed less than 100 yards passing yesterday and less than 100 yards rushing against Purdue. The thing that stood out to me was the way that they triggered on a lot of these perimeter passes from Purdue. I'm talking the quick screens on the outside, the bubble screens, the plays you try and get your guys in space, the swing passes, whatever it is. Nebraska was hitting in the most serious sense of the word. Guys are flying up from the second and third level and arriving with nothing but bad intentions and making their presence felt, which shows me a couple of things. One, testament to the scheme. This 3-3-5 defense from Tony White, guys are in position to go and make plays. We're not having a thing where the coverage is busted and we got to, find a way to rally up to the football and make a tackle after a 7-yard gain. I didn't see a lot of that. I saw a lot of what I just said, flying with their hair on fire, taking a good angle and making a play. So that's the first part, testament to the scheme. Second part, guys are playing ball. What I said earlier, you're not seeing a lot of checking your feet, a lot of read, react, like, oh, I'm thinking. No, guys, I don't see a ton of thinking out there in the best sense. If you're thinking, guess what you're not doing? Playing football. You can't do both at the same time. You got to be instinctual out there. And that's what Tony White and this defense, I believe, are equipping their guys to do. You don't always see that in a first-year defense. Typically, it kind of takes a second to get everyone's feet under them. I didn't see that from Nebraska yesterday. This 3-3-5 defense, another testament to Tony White and what this roster has done right now. They have a lot of speed on the field by nature of having 5 defensive backs, which allows them to be aggressive, allows them to cover and kind of play flexible against these different, more spread-friendly offenses. But again, you have to be able to rally to the football, and they do that consistently. They also do a great job confusing the opposition. Another thing you can do when you have speed on the field like that. I can rock and roll my safeties. I can bring a safety down and allow him to play in the flats and be able to also play the run. I mean, there's so much flexibility and confusion available to you with this 3-3-5 defense. Tony White and company doing a great job to this point, and yesterday was no exception. So, what do we make of all this? From a macro level, okay, Nebraska, they're 5-3. 5s are good. The Big Ten's going to go away with divisions next year. So, the Big Ten West will be no more. So, we're going to try and throw a party before the lights go out if we're the Cornhuskers. To me, what we're seeing from Nebraska right now is confirmation of what we suspected from Nebraska in previous years, and that was that they had a roster to be competitive. What we're seeing right now is Nebraska's roster that we thought they had in-house coming to fruition. Yes, they made some portal additions. I don't want to overlook that, but it was never a thing where the car was just bad parts. Wasn't assembled well, wasn't driven correctly. And you heard that a lot about your football team if you're a Nebraska fan, and you probably believed that to a degree, but after a while, you're like, hey, you keep telling me we have the roster. You keep telling me we have the guys, but we keep having seasons where we miss a bowl game. We keep having one-score losses. At some point in time, is it not on the personnel? At some point in time, is it not on our guys? There's blame to be shared. Of course, it's on the players to make plays, ultimately. I understand that. We understand that together. But, at the end of the day, to see the roster from last year, the guys who stayed, in addition to these portal guys, making the plays they're making, I think it's confirmation that they do have the roster in-house. They were never that far off. So what you go to is the guy putting it together. You have the correct leadership. Even more specifically with Matt Rhule, the word he loves, I told you he loves elite. He loves process. The process they have right now, they're buying into it, and you're seeing results early on in the process. If they didn't have the guys, talk about Baylor for a second. When he was at Baylor, they had the correct process. Probably took a while to generate some buy-in, I would imagine, but it took a while to get the right guys. Nebraska, by nature of what we're seeing right now, they have a lot of the right guys. Do they have all of them? I don't know. We'll see. Probably going to get better guys in the future, too, by nature of how they're going to recruit. We'll talk about that here, but I think the way they're trending tells you a lot about last year and what they have right now in-house. Was always good enough, is what I want to make sure we say. So, for the future, a bowl game, absolutely a success. Preseason, we had them at 6-6. Much more than that is on the table for them right now. So we're all on the same page. Much more than 6-6 is available right now. They have a possibility to surpass that. The Big Ten West, we talked about at the top, it's a conversation. It's a conversation. We'll see how it plays out. But to even be in the fight, if I told you as a Nebraska Cornhusker fan, hey, you're going to have a few losses, but when it comes to November, you'll be in the Big Ten West hunt. You cool with that? You'll be right around, the top of that conversation. You good with that? You take that in a heartbeat. You'd feel like the Matt Rhule experience is already trending in a positive direction. And guess what? It is. There isn't this whole revamp rebuild. We told you before, and you already knew this. You have the roster now, and you're seeing proof of concept. So, Coach Rhule, I would also say this, you hired Matt Rhule for things well beyond 2023. So what would excite me here, yes, the bowl game is exciting. Yes, being able to be in that Big Ten West hunt is exciting. But what you have now is proof of concept. What you have now is something you can bottle up, take on the recruiting trail, and say, hey, come be a part of this in Lincoln. You see what we're doing here? You see what we have. You see the guys that he's put in the league previously, the development we have here. Come be a part of this. Come be a part of this. And I think that's going to be the key ingredient now, is upping the talent level when you get to the new Big Ten conference with the additions of the teams from the Pac-12 with Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA, and the doing away with of divisions. So now it's kind of a free-for-all Hunger Games style in the Big Ten. At that point, you got to have the rosters to match up week in and week out. And what they're doing right now is the proper step to get to that roster. So yes, this year is exciting, but with what the future holds for Nebraska, I think this is an even bigger step than I think a lot of people would like to realize when it comes to Nebraska football. So it's been hurt for a while. It's been hurting for a little bit. No way around it. The one-score losses, the missing bowl games, all that. Like, they still have a win to go to get to bowl eligibility. But the way they're playing right now is potentially going to be a trampoline for them to better rosters the rest of the way and to really put Nebraska in a place that they expect it to be in previous years and where they can expect to be going forward with Matt Rhule running the show and Matt Rhule's process continuing to take place at Nebraska. Make sure you're subscribed. Talking Ball and Only Ball every single day right here on the Hard Count on the On3 YouTube channel. Hey, follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at JD Pickell. I want to hear from y'all. What are your thoughts on Nebraska to this point in the season? Let's talk about it. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all. We're going to keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of the Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.